There we go. Okay, back to recording the session. Where do you find the slideshow? It's in the same place where you can find the packet. The PowerPoint is with the packet. Okay, back to muting everyone. Okay, so let me share PowerPoint. Okay, let me just move this a bit so I can see the chat pops up. So we're starting back at the beginning of IS 5, which is characteristics of life. We've covered a lot of this section. So starting off, biology is the study of life. Very week one stuff. A biologist is someone who uses a scientific method to study the living things. Describing what makes something alive is not necessarily easy. There's a bunch of different characteristics for it. Why can't I see chat? There we go. You don't have to take notes. No, that's like, one second, guys. You can't see half of the words? What half?
I could see the words.
Let's share it again.
Just zoom out of the.
Zoom out?
Yeah, like you with your fingers, you zoom out if you're on your phone.
Oh, okay.
Laptop.
It's like,
If you
I mean, I
see
can. Okay.
I'm good. I can see.
Okay, so no single characteristic is enough to describe a living thing. You need all of these different characteristics to describe what a living thing is, because some non-living things share one or more traits with living things. So one good example, if for these trying times, are viruses. Viruses are considered non-living, but they share a lot of different traits with living things. They have DNA. They kind of reproduce, right? But they are not living because they don't have all of the different things. So in biology, we're studying life. And what makes up life? Well, first thing is living things grow and develop. So you think about how you started out. You were like tiny little infants. You cried a lot, getting to Vietnam flashbacks. Yeah. You probably started off like we all did, little tiny worms, and then eventually you wrapped yourself in a blanket and you just waited for about a week, and then you came out like this butterfly. If I had butterfly wings, I would have worn them to class today, but I don't. So maybe that'll be my thing as a online teacher. But yeah, so living things grow and develop. They start as little tiny things and then they get bigger, usually. Another characteristic is that they're made up of units called cells. So either they're one cell, so unicellular, or multicellular. They have multiple cells. Think about viruses. They're not made up of cells. They're really just DNA. Are cells living? And if they are, how is it different from corona? No. Okay. Yes, cells are living, but corona is a virus. It's coronavirus. So the difference between cells for us is we'll get more into next week. But cells, like they're those circles, and they have different organelles in them, and then in the center is a nucleus, and all the DNA is in there. Viruses are like, oh God, I wish I could like draw something. They have like a little protective barrier, and then inside that barrier is just DNA. And they have like little hooks so they can hook onto the cell, and then they get into the cell, and then they just like inject that DNA, and that's how they replicate. So they override DNA in a cell. So what makes a cell is a bunch of different things. It's a nucleus, right? Cytoplasm, and all the different organelles inside of it. A cell has a very generic, or not generic, but it's made up a certain way. And there's a difference between animal cells and plant cells. So plant cells have what's called a cell wall. They also have different organelles. So they have chloroplasts. So cells are living. It's different from viruses because a virus just has the DNA. They don't have all the different organelles. They're about, I think they're smaller. They're smaller than cells too. Oh, here comes everyone else. They all figured it out. Yeah, for those joining us, I'm sorry. The Zoom meeting ended. After this, I'm going to probably upgrade so I can have longer Zoom meetings so that doesn't happen again. Yeah. Anyways. If you really want to see what you missed, you haven't missed much. It'll also be in the YouTube video later. But I don't think you have to watch that. You'll be fine. Okay, so living things are made up of units called cells, right? So, and you see all these different cells. You see the nerve, the blood, the muscle, and all of these come together to make multicellular organisms. Okay. Next, living things reproduce. So all living things have to reproduce. They have to be able to create more of themselves. Otherwise, there would be no more living things. And that's just not fun. Plus, we get like cute little baby things like this little baby bear. Can't tell if it's a brown or a polar bear. I think it's brown bear. Or you get these ugly things. But living things reproduce different ways. So there's asexual reproduction, right? So where they just kind of clone themselves, and then there's two. So bacteria do this usually. Another thing that does this in a different way are like starfish. If you guys know how starfish reproduce asexually, when they break apart, and then you have this little like starfish arm, and then it grows into another starfish. And that's fun stuff. So they clone themselves by breaking themselves. But they also can reproduce sexually. Most things reproduce sexually, I would say, most species on the planet, as that creates the biggest genetic diversity. So you get less people that are homogenous or less animals that are homogenous. And that's, that's one of the problems that we're having, especially with like inbreeding and stuff with our vegetables. But that's another thing altogether. Main thing, living things reproduce. Okay. To reproduce, does there have to be a male plus female, or can something reproduce on its own besides cells? Yeah. So like I just said, it doesn't have to be just male and female. That's sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is the other option. So like bacteria can reproduce on its own, but that is like it's cloning itself. Another thing, flowers have male and female organisms, or not organisms, organs in them. So I guess it could inseminate themselves, but more often when you're looking at, things that are just doing it on themselves. You're thinking things that can asexually reproduce. So starfish, oh God, I can't even remember the other. I can't remember the other things that asexually reproduce. If anyone knows something that can, I don't think leopard sharks can, but I will check that later and I will get back to you. I'll take a note of everything in the chats and try and get back. Okay. Cool. Number 4, living things are based on a universal genetic code called DNA. So all living things, they have DNA in them. And I mean, like, there's not much else to say about this, really, other than we all have it. One thing, though, is that viruses have DNA. That's how they reproduce. They inject their DNA, overwrite the cell's DNA, so that when the cell reproduces, it's reproducing with that bad DNA. But we all have DNA. Things that aren't living don't have it. So like rocks don't have DNA. My computer that I'm looking at doesn't have DNA. It has molecules, but it doesn't have DNA. It doesn't have anything coding for it. And and like, again, this is all review, really. Living things metabolize, or wow, I kind of yelled. I don't need to yell. I'm sorry. Living things metabolize or obtain and use matter and energy to support cell activity. Okay, so all living things. What is this V here? This is volume. All living things metabolize. So they take energy that they get from different sources. So we as, oh, I see. So we as a species get our energy by eating things. I hope you all had a good breakfast today. I hope True gets her chocolate muffin. I hope I get a chocolate muffin. Maybe I'll just go and, that's Sarah. It's okay, Isaac. Maybe I'll just go and buy a chocolate muffin. But that chocolate muffin, I actually had cereal today. So the cereal is that energy that I'm going to use to support my cell activity throughout the day. This intensive activity of lecturing all of you guys. It was Honey Bunches of Oats. It's a pretty good cereal. Yeah. I need to eat different things though. I have like cereal most days or a bagel or something. Because now that I'm not at school, I don't have to just eat a banana for breakfast. Yeah, I love Honey Bunches too. It's a good brand. It's a good solid brand. So we use this energy that we get from our cereal, from our breakfasts and lunches and dinners, and we use it to support our cell activity. We wouldn't have the energy to do anything. Okay, I can send you. So if you go to my teacher page, I'll show it again at the end of this. If you go to my teacher page, I have an actual document of it, like a Word document, not just a PDF. Give it up to the man doing a Let's Play. I'm not doing a Let's Play. Okay. So like this plant gets its energy from, turning light into sugar, which is food that it then consumes and gets stronger. I wish when I was into AP Bio, I postulated like implanting us with chloroplasts to to also do photosynthesis as humans, but it's not a good bet, because if you think about it, what are we doing all day? We're like moving around, we're talking to people, we move and stuff. Plants, they just sit there. What's up, Robert? How's it going? But yeah, plants just sit there. They just like kind of, oh God, you can't see all my arms unless like I move way back like that. And then they just photosynthesis, right? Like SpongeBob. I don't know if you guys have seen that episode. I've been like a plant these past 4 weeks. I understand that. I do. I've done almost nothing as well. I've worked on my D&D stuff. Okay, moving on. Living things respond to their environment. Okay? So living things, they don't just like whatever happens in their environment, they just kind of take it, right? Actually, you know what? Honestly, that SpongeBob episode that it's from is the most apt for what's going on right now. If anyone wants to send me their rendition of the Indoors song, I will also give you extra credit for that. But do it through email or during office hours. That's fair. That's why it's extra credit, Isaac. You don't have to do it. Living things respond to their environment. So we don't just kind of sit here as living things and just like, if my brother were to open that door right now, he's not going to do it because he's working. But if he were to open the door right now and just like throw something at me, I wouldn't just like not recognize that, right? I'd try and pick it up and throw it back at him and then yell at him. If my mom were to bring in the slushie that she just bought me while they went to the store today, I would say thank you. Yeah, I'm definitely flexing on that one there. But either way, living things respond to their environment. Plants, if they get fed water, they're going to grow into big, strong, healthy plants. If we get fed water, we will not die. Can you have a sip of the slushy? Sure. If you come over here, but I'm not telling you where. Okay. We get on the living things. Let's move on. Living things also maintain homeostasis, or stable internal environment. So we talked about this. This was the last thing we talked about before we went on break. Right? Corona. 6 feet. Okay, there's a lot of COD talk in the chat. We don't need to be talking about Call of Duty right now. So living things maintain homeostasis. So all living things have an internal environment that they kind of try and maintain, right? So we have homeostasis. So like if we get too hot, we start sweating. We have the positive feedback loops, negative feedback loops. Off the top of my head, I can't remember all of them. I remember birth, blood clotting. It's fine. It's been a few weeks. The chart isn't on the activity for the document. I'll get to that. Yeah, it's at the very bottom though, Isaac. Thank you. So all living things maintain a stable environment. So if you think about viruses again, viruses are not maintaining homeostasis. They don't have a stable internal environment. They're just like a thing. They just want to reproduce kind of. They have DNA, they want to reproduce, but that's why they're not living. And then taken as a group, living things change over time or evolve. So all living things, over time, they're going to change in some way because they're responding to their environment, right? Because some things in their environment are killing some off, but the better ones are surviving. So those better ones are going to become the apex and evolve and be super great at things. So like these finches, remember the Galapagos Islands, all the finches are different. And then you see these little horse things. I can't see the eras, but how these horses have evolved into that thing. I went to the zoo recently. There's like a thing that looks like a horse, but it's actually related to a giraffe. I think it's called like an okapi. And the only thing that's like similar in them is that it's got those like weird little antenna horn things. Yeah, guys, let's stop talking about Call of Duty here. And Rainbow Six. Let's not. So, things evolve over time. Living things specifically. What's interesting is that viruses again are like this in this regard. They change over time, right? So that's why we have the flu shots every year changing, because the one flu at the start of the season could change into a different flu, and then that's the most prominent one. Okay? So, viruses are like living things in that regard. I know I'm focusing on the viruses thing a lot. That's the living thing or non-living thing that I know that resembles life a lot. And it's also the most prevalent to our circumstances, right? We're definitely in some trying times here. Oh, this is running out in 10 minutes. Okay, let's get going faster. So we don't need to do this. But this is the Amoeba Sisters, if you wanted to watch this to get the characteristics of life. I'm not going to do that on the lecture. So, in the beginning activity, there's like a wood frog that is frozen, right? It's been frozen. They do this thing where like each year they freeze themselves. And then after the freezing session ends, they just kind of like hop away because they've defrosted. So here's the question. Is the wood frog alive that's frozen solid, or is it dead? Or not sure? What do you think? Who's got an answer to the question? Or just want to postulate? It's alive from Thomas. Okay. Who else? Alive, Chrissia. Okay. Alive from Alyssa. Eugene's. So it's everyone's saying it's alive, which that's fair. Why do you think it's alive? True is alive. Yep. Okay. I would say it's alive as well, right? I don't think it's dead, but this next slide helps you understand that a little bit. So, because of hibernation, it contains body heat because the cells are still maybe they're just frozen. Yeah. Oh man, you guys are so smart. This is why I have the best students out of all the other teachers. Those teachers can just get out of here. So, stasis and dormancy. So stasis is called a slowing it's called stasis. The definition is a slowing or stopping of the normal flow of a bodily fluid or semi-fluid. So the frogs are going into stasis. They're stopping their normal flow of body fluid or semi-fluid. And they're going into a biological activity of suspension, right? So they're going into dormancy, they're hibernating. So they're still alive, but they're just kind of frozen. They're hibernating. Okay, so like this bear here, this bear hibernates every winter. He just kind of stops and sleeps for all of winter. And then he comes back out. I'm pretty sure Mr. Jonas isn't here to back me up here, but I think like all of the bodily fluids like kind of stop for bears, or they slow down. They're metabolizing at a very, very slow rate because they're just not doing anything. And they like stocked up beforehand. Okay. So process versus need. A seed may not need water while dormant, but once activated, it requires water to make energy and grow. So think about like the seeds that you get at like Home Depot, right? If they stopped, wouldn't it end up clotting? What are you talking about? Their blood? The blood is still in bears, at least. They've slowed down. Yeah, Sebastian's right. It just slowed down. All of their bodily fluids just kind of slowed down. And I think they have like some kind of plug at the end of their butt too, so that they just keep everything in. I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of gross. That's why we don't hibernate. So think about the seeds that you get at the store, right? They're dormant. They're not doing anything. But once you activate them, once you put them in soil and then put water on them, if you don't keep doing that, they're going to die. Would it clot? I don't think so. If the blood stopped, I think they would just be dead. It wouldn't be a clot. A clot could stop. Could stop it, but if it did stop, if the blood stopped, it would just be a dead bear. Poor bear. But yeah, so the seeds, what you got to activate them, and then once you activate them, they keep needing more water and more energy. But before that, they're dormant. They don't need anything. And that's just how it goes. Now, what do you think? Is a frog alive or dead? Okay, so that's the end of our lecture, guys. I'm going to stop the share. Any questions in these last few minutes before it kicks us all out again? Frankie, I'm just going to stop your video here.
Why? Okay, so why isn't Word letting me write on it?
Did you enable editing?
Yeah. I clicked it and then I tried typing.
Do you have
But-
Word or?
Yes, I have it, but it's asking me to like log into Microsoft or something like that.
Are you getting it from the website?
From
From the
I'm
Freedom
getting
website?
like the app or whatever, or like the thing you download or.
Okay, so the best bet then would to be going to my teacher page.
Mhm.
Then go to my teacher page because I have the files there, and you can just download the files
Oh, okay then.
as actual documents. That's the problem that I was having with the department yesterday.
Mhm.
Is that no one could access the things without like logging in or something, and that's just
Yeah.
too many steps.
All right.
So
Thank you.
yeah, download from my teacher page if you can't.
So the 3 things you have to complete is the activity 6, what we learned, and what else?
Question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Do we only need to do the last page? Yes. The last activity.
And then the whole pack is extra credit, right?
Can you show the chat on the docs? Let me see. Let me show you. Yeah, let me share. What's extra credit? Say that again.
The whole packet is, right?
If you do the whole packet this week, yeah. If you show up to this too. So to get to the download portion, you go to my teacher page. You go to Cabral Eric, Living Earth, and then you could just download. If you click one of these, it'll download the packet for you or the PowerPoint. Okay, we have 2 minutes left.
So that whole thing that you said about if we send you what was it? That whole thing about if we sing that thing from SpongeBob, we get extra credit. I'm honestly wondering, is that true?
That's true. Yeah, I'll give you extra credit for that.
Give me 10 minutes tops.
Okay, we'll send it to my email. If I print it and take a picture, can I send it to you? Yes.
Make sure to do it through Remind, though. It's probably the easiest way.
Yeah, I don't know about the remind thing, but if that's true, do we also have to do the characteristics of life? Oh, Mia asked. Oh, God. Did Mia get in? Are you in here, Mia? You are in here. Okay. Sorry, guys, if you texted remind when I was trying to focus on the lecture and you were trying to get back in. Do the characteristics of the packet. Is Reagan in here? Reagan didn't make it back. Jacob didn't make it back. Sorry, guys. Less than 1 minute. It's probably going to kick us out here soon. If you have any questions, I'm going to restart it again. You can come by and ask more questions. Thanks, Thomas. I love you too. But yeah, so when it kicks us out, I'll start it again. If not, I hope you have a